Welcome back to another episode of the Daily Turnups. I don't even know what's going on in the world right now. There are too many topics. We were kind of debating, talking about, hey, what should be in this episode? And we've established that there's too many topics to cover everything. So we're just going to talk about the big ones. And really, as you can tell, because you clicked on this video by looking at the cover photo and reading the title, the number one thing we're going to talk about is Epstein and anything and everything we can. We got a resident expert, CK, that's going to lead the charge on that. We also want to talk about two other things. We'll probably spice in a few after that. But we really want to look into ICE in Minnesota, the Don Lemon being arrested, and just the absolute shit show that has become the state of Minnesota and really Minneapolis. Now we're going to wrap it up talking about China removing two of its top generals and who's behind it, which should be a massive news story in itself and is nowhere to be seen. So let's reintroduce for opening statements. CK, how are you doing today?
MRBG, great to be back. I usually have a opening salvo. I'm going to save it because I have a lot to say.
Because it is the main topic today. Your wish is answered. BG, opening statement. Go for it.
CK, MR, excited to be here. I'm excited for a Super Bowl coming up this next weekend. And we just survived an ice storm in the central U.S., so excited that my power is on.
Dude, happy for you. Well, I don't normally do an opening statement because I usually just kind of do the monologue, but I'm going to lead with my opening statement because we don't have time to talk about it. Venezuela. You can't find it on any news article, any major site, on any major news. You can't go to any website or go to Fox, CNN, MSNBC, whatever you listen to, and read or hear anything about it. It's like it never happened. And yet we removed a leader of a sovereign nation a few weeks ago, and it's like it didn't even happen. That is wild. But all right, turnips, let's talk about the Epstein files. So the recent release of the Epstein files consists of a massive cache of previously sealed or partially redacted U.S. Department of Justice records tied to the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. The disclosure includes millions of pages of documents, thousands of photos and videos, flight logs, emails, contact lists, interviews, notes, and internal investigative materials gathered over several decades. These materials were released following court orders and congressional pressure aimed at transparency through significant portions remain redacted to protect victims, ongoing investigations, and legal privilege information. So there's so much that's been released, and I don't think we know everything that's been released, especially when you're talking about millions of pages. It just takes a lot of time to get there. But some of the highest of high-profile names include President Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Jay-Z, Prince Andrews, and so much more. And also, there's a little speculation that a certain country was the handler of Epstein. So, CK, I want to turn it over to you. I want you to talk about these files. What's in them? Who's in them? What does this mean? And really, what can we expect next? The floor is yours.
Let's go one at a time. I'm just going to rattle names. I don't know how to start.
Yep,
I'm
just
go
for it, man. Just go for it.
Donald Trump, obviously. Elon Musk feels vindicated weirdly because he didn't visit the items because he begged on email to visit the island, but they said no. Bill Gates, Prince Andrew, Bill Clinton, Howard Lutnick, current Secretary of Commerce, Steve Tisch, New York Giants co-owner, Sergey Brin, Google co-founder, Richard Branson, Steve Bannon, Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously, Peter Mandelson, Sarah Ferguson, Leslie Wexner, Leon Black, Larry Summers, Reid Hoffman, Woody Allen, Mick Jagger, Michael Jackson, Diana Ross, Alan Dershowitz, Jean-Luc Brunel, Peter Attia, Catherine Rumler, I don't even know these people, Mehmet Oz, Melania Trump, Kevin Spacely, surprise, surprise, Chris Tucker, Naomi Campbell, Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel, David Copperfield, Stephen Hawking, Cameron Diaz, Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Blanchett, Bruce Willis, Kevin Warsh, current Trump just tapped him to be the head of the Fed, Boris Nikolic, Walter Cronkite, Phil Collins, Minnie Driver, Elie Wiesel, Al Gore, George Lucas, Harvey Weinstein, Tallulah Riley, Sun Yi Previn, Doug Band, George H.W. Bush, Bill Richardson, Naomi Chomsky, Tom Ford. Okay, 51 names I just named. 344 days ago, Pam Bondi said the Epstein files were on her desk. 208 days ago, the DOJ and FBI co-signed a memo saying the Epstein investigation was closed and there is no client list. It doesn't exist. And 137 days ago, Kash Patel testified in Senate Judiciary Committee hearing that there is no credible information Epstein trafficked children to anybody. So we're on a podcast with maybe 6 listeners, and I just named 51 fucking names. How far we've come from there is no Epstein client list. What the fuck? Okay? And I just named names. George H.W. Bush in the files apparently raped a male, underage male. Again, Elon Musk begged to go to the island. What do we have? Ehud Barak was texting the former prime minister of Israel was texting Epstein saying, and Epstein was saying, just so you know, I'm definitely not Mossad, winky face.
Yup.
I don't even know where to end. I mean, obviously Bill Clinton, Prince Andrew. Oh, Bill Gates was texting Epstein or emailing Epstein for antibiotics because he got an STD while on the island and didn't want Melinda to find out.
And if you watch Melinda interviews, she does hint at that too. That's what ruined their marriage.
Yeah. Let's see. The director of the Melania movie, I don't even know his name. He was on this list somewhere. He was on the files. Again, I said the True Trump tapped Warsh for the Fed on the files. Howard Lutnick. So I mean, everyone Trump surrounded himself with on the files. This is madness. I think the second question, what was it? What do we do about it?
What should be done and what will happen in reality?
What will happen? Nothing will happen. And what should we do? Viva la revolution. I'm serious. It's not even like we're talking about Wall Street. We're talking about Hollywood. We're talking about all branches of politics. We're talking about other countries. So every single established sector in the known world is corrupted by this virus, and that virus is, since the beginning of man, the most evil thing you can do is corrupt the innocence of children. Every single known sector of rich and powerful people, every bastion is corrupted by this virus. So the only thing to do is to kill the cancer, because it spreads so deep, is to kill the host. This is enough. This country will never heal. Every single other thing I've said this before, is a symptom. This is the cause. If you have evil people running your country, they don't actually care about you. They're not worried about their constituents. They all need to go. They all need to go on the gallows, and then you need to start over.
Yeah. And so, CK, kind of one of the first things I'm picking up with this is when the 2008 financial crash happened, it impacted and affected everybody. It was too big to fail, so the government bailed it out. One or two banks went down, but I think one person got arrested and everything went back to normal. We're seeing the same economic problems we have now that we did back then. This is the same exact thing. It is.
Oh, and meanwhile, all of the failed financiers were on this Epstein Island, and all the politicians who gave him bailouts were on this island. So why was it too big to fail? Because you guys were all fucking children.
Exactly. And that's what happens, right? You corrupt a few and then you bring more people in and they can't get out because they fuck children. They're going to hell, obviously. It's horrible, disgusting. The words that we can't even describe to depict these people, but they are so enrooted, to your point, in the government. How do you even go about fixing it without the entire system collapsing? And that is the point. That is the plan, saying you can't do anything to us because everything falls apart. Your 401k, your savings, your livelihood, your job, everything will collapse if you prosecute us. No one is safe. Hey, do you want to go back to 1920s America or whenever the Great Depression, 1930s America during the Great Depression, where you could barely afford food? Well, you won't be able to eat because the supply chains will drop if we go down with it. And that is their nuclear button. That's how they get away with this. And it is completely disgusting.
And to go further down the rabbit hole, all of the big conspiracies of this year, they were all alluded to in the same Epstein file drop, right? Epstein was a Mossad plant and working for the Israeli government. All over these files. Pizzagate, I'm serious. There are so many innuendos to pizza being children in these files. Like, now you believe it. Okay, every time a celebrity mentioned pizza, were they actually talking about children? I don't know, because it really does seem so in these files. Um, there's a couple other ones, but I mean, obviously the Epstein conspiracy at all, but like, it just doesn't make sense, other than they all have sold their soul, and the only way to make it in this world is to sell your soul, and the actual contractual signing of that contract is raping children.
Because that's how they control you.
Yep.
And that's how they own you. And that is, and is there any other greater way to go to hell than to do that to a child? Right? Isn't that the number one-way ticket without any pause?
It has to be.
So we've established that, one, if there's anyone that doubted the Epstein files, well, welcome to reality. They're real. We have a more robust name or list of names of who was involved, and we can all imagine that there was even more people involved in that. Now, if you're one of the people that says, oh, no, that person's not on it. No, that's not right. Well, let's work within our left and right limit. These names are on it. To the extent of what they did, you can give the benefit of the doubt that they didn't do everything that's in an email, but you can probably guess or bet that they have done something horrible to be associated with Jeffrey Epstein or go to the island or anything in between. But
yeah, I give no benefit and all doubt.
Sure. Yeah. And that's totally fair. So, as we know, and as you can see historically, and as conspiracies come to life that they are actually real, nothing happens by accident, nothing is by chance, most of it's planned. So, what I really want to know, CK, is why now? To your point, you listed off dates. 344 days. Trump ran on releasing the files. Elon Musk called out Trump when they had their breakup last year that he was in the files, right? So, this is a campaign. Pam Bondi comes out. They freaking bring up the files, walking out with empty files saying we're going to release them. You read off all those dates. Why now compared to last week, a year ago, as soon as Trump took office? It's not just because it took so long to press send to the public a million files. They already had them for years. That takes 2 seconds. So why now? And BG, you can hop in after CK. Give you an opportunity to talk here too.
I mean, it's impossible to know, right? I agree with you. We've talked about this many times. Thomas Massie got that discharge petition and signed this into law that all of the Epstein files would be released. Like a week later or a month later, barely anything was released, and most of it was heavily redacted. And we've talked about this. Like, no way these rich and famous people are going to let like a signature discharge petition just like ruin everything. All of their power and fame. And I mean, not to say that any of this is ruining anything, but it seems, I think the leading conspiracy is that Israel wanted Trump to bomb Iran. He said no. And this was the ramifications. They said, okay, you don't want to do what you're told? This is what we'll do.
But he did bomb Iran, though. I mean, he hasn't yet for a second time, but he at least did the first time.
Yeah, just recently, this last week.
No, I mean, I was saying he bombed him over the summer. I mean, I could speculate. BG, I'll give you a chance to talk on anything Epstein before I kind of give my 2 cents. Yeah, sure. Obviously, we don't know out of all people.
Yeah, I think CK gave a fantastic rundown. I will add, I found something interesting according to British sources who have started reviewing the files. You know who else is also mentioned in terms of additional power folks?
Outside of Prince Andrews and the British side, or just in general?
Former U.S. Ambassador Peter Mandelson, British U.S. Ambassador, is mentioned in there. In addition, there are over 1,000 documents that mention either Vladimir Putin or someone else in the Russian administration, meaning that it is likely that this scenario was a massive honeypot operation for Russia and Israel. Why wouldn't it be? If you're gathering all of these people that are effectively a cancer to our society, who have all these prominent positions everywhere, how would this not be a massive counterintelligence organization?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Exactly. And so when I take a step back and I kind of look at like, okay, where are we? Where can we go? To CK, to your point, are people going to stop buying Microsoft products because Bill Gates is in it? He may not give any more speeches or go on talk shows anymore because he might get booed out the room until the propaganda machine comes in and says, no, Bill Gates didn't do anything. Trump is not going to resign like Richard Nixon did with Watergate. Jay-Z, people aren't going to stop listening to Jay-Z music or stop going to his concerts. I don't think there's enough people passionate enough of holding people accountable for committing the sickest act possible to disrupt their world and the world as a whole. Now, if people come out and say this isn't true, let me tell you, the Department of Justice isn't going to release all of this. Damn Trump in the process when he's kind of the gatekeeper of it all if it's not real. Like there's just no way that's the case. So I would hope that dominoes and people fall and they're held accountable, but I think it's unlikely. And I also think it's happening now more than not because this January, and we're only going to more unprecedented times, whether it's Venezuela, whether it's Iran, whether it's China, which we'll talk later, whether it's Russia, Ukraine, whether it's Israel trying to do stuff in Gaza. There are so many things happening. It's not just one thing. There's like 20 different massive things in any other year before like the last 4 years would be the number one story for months. And I think it's just, hey, we're going to drop this to distract. And then, hey, we're going to bomb Iran 3 days later from now. And we're going to forget about the Epstein files again. There's just, it's all coordinated and you're going to see things happening a few days from now or shit, maybe even tomorrow or before we even release this podcast in order to distract from this as well.
You know what will happen? The Democrats will win the midterms so that the Democrat pedophiles will take over instead of the Republican pedophiles.
They're just changing hands. It's a changing of the guard.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's the uniparty will win, and the pedophiles will replace the other pedophiles.
Yeah. So I think we're all just pretty angry and upset. One, that this existed. Two, that we don't feel confident in our system to do anything because the system would inevitably have to collapse to some extent in order for real change to happen. Before I give you guys one last comment to make before we move on to the next comment or the next section, I don't think this is ended. I understand Jeffrey Epstein is dead and he did not kill himself, but it's probably more likely than not that there's another ring going around where more children and women are being raped, abused, trafficked, and whatnot in order to keep this cycle alive of empowering more wealthy people to get wealthy to corrupt or to get power to corrupt. And this is probably still going on, and we won't know the person who did this maybe ever, or at least for a long time from now. And that is what is also sickening and disgusting.
Oh, no, we've just empowered all of them. They're about to figure out that they can do all this. The people can know, and nothing will happen. Guess what? That emboldens them. We don't have to hide it as much anymore. You don't have to sweep it under the rug. You don't have to spend money bribing people and keeping things and killing this person. It doesn't matter. You've just emboldened them and empowered them because they can get away with it with zero ramifications. I will say, God bless Thomas Massey, who's been the thorn in the side of Donald Trump and the whole GOP, because he's just been nagging at this, and I've been tweeting you guys you see what Thomas Massey wrote, and you guys who cares? He's just one guy.
It's not that who cares. It's that we didn't feel that anything would happen because
of
it.
Yeah. And he's just been nagging just like a chihuahua, just won't stop barking. But how much has come that didn't come before? Even if nothing happens, how much information and truth has come out because Thomas Massey just won't stop barking? And Mary Madelson and Trump just funded $800,000 more to a super PAC to primary Massey. They just keep trying to get him out, and the more he does it, the stronger he gets.
True. BG, you got any last comments on this before we move over to ICE in Minnesota?
Yeah, I hope Well, I don't have confidence or faith similar to CK and yourself, MR. I don't have confidence that the DOJ will prosecute anybody for these
Yep.
files or anything that's leaked in the files or any potential evidence. It's just gone on too long and nothing's going to happen. I do hope that organizations like the NFL, who now have named individuals who are owners of the franchise, MLB or whatever case, right? Anyone else we find in these files, these organizations take action to remove them from ownership because this is totally unacceptable behavior.
Yeah, that would be the least of all the things. My final comment on this is CK. When you were going down the list, reading like the 51 names, all I was thinking is Billy Joel. What's that Billy Joel song? We Didn't Start the Fire. And someone thinking of a parody of all the names of all the disgusting people that did horrific, horrific things, and just making a parody song about that. So catchy that people might actually all listen, understand what's going on, and do something about it. All right. Well, if you're passionate about holding people accountable for the Epstein files, let us hear it in the comment section. Like, subscribe, and do everything we can to hold people accountable for the horrible things that they do. But let's transition over to the next topic, ICE Minnesota. So in Minnesota, tensions remain extremely high after 2 fatal shootings by U.S. immigration and custom officers, i.e. ICE agents. First being Renée Good, and the second being Alex Pretti during a large federal immigration enforcement operation in Minnesota and St. Paul, sparking widespread protests and a national debate over ICE tactics and the use of force. Federal and local officials are clashing over Operation Metro Surge, with Minnesota officials seeking to halt the deployment and a federal judge denying that request, while activists and community groups continue to mobilize ICE observation patrols to document enforcement actions. Also, former CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested by federal agents in Los Angeles in connection with a January protest at a church in St. Paul against ICE involvement. Prosecutors charged him and others with civil rights related offenses tied to the disruption of a religious service. Though Lemon says he's acting as a journalist covering the event, the arrest of Lemon and other media figures have drawn press freedom scrutiny, and the Justice Department has also launched a civil rights investigation into the Minneapolis shootings amid ongoing protests and legal battles over immigration enforcement and federal authority. So, BG, I'm going to turn this one over to you. One, I kind of want you to break down a little like what is just in general going on with ICE Minnesota. Is ICE the new Gestapo? Are they just undertrained, but they're still doing what they're supposed to? Should Don Lemon been arrested? Did he overstep by going into a church? You know, churches are, whether it's church, synagogues, mosque, Buddhist temple, whatever it may be, we'll just say religious buildings. You know, did he overstep the line there? And this is a just arrest. So I'll turn it over to you and just take us where you want to go.
All right. I appreciate the question, MRCK. I think you guys are definitely better resident experts at everything with respect to ICE, given your fantastic ICE episode. So if you guys haven't listened to their previous ICE episode, go check them out on the Daily Turnup on YouTube. With respect to the Gestapo enforcement, I think that ICE has surpassed what they would normally classify as actions for immigration enforcement. I don't think shootings against U.S. citizens should be authorized unless they're actively in a deadly force scenario, right? These are still law enforcement officers. I think in any circumstance where civilians are potentially putting themselves in the way of law enforcement, there is going to be a circumstance where they possibly cross the line, right? And I think we've seen that in 2 different circumstances with Renée Good and Alex Pretti. But having said that, there's no question that the federal government is responsible for enforcing immigration law, and we figured that out under the Obama administration, back over a decade ago. So I don't think that Minneapolis or Minnesota as a state writ large has any power whatsoever to really try to force these guys out of the state. And frankly, I don't think any city or state in the United States has that power at all, because immigration law is enforced at the federal level, full stop. All of that said, do I think they're resorting to Gestapo tactics? No, I think they're still doing their job. Again, I don't think it's acceptable to be shooting American citizens, but I think stopping people and asking them for papers is within the confines of acceptable. Further, this type of enforcement action does not require due process considerations because it's a completely different set of code, right? So there is a little bit of gray area here that the law is going to work with, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it. Pivoting to the Don Lemon incident. So at the church in Minneapolis, protesters came in and started protesting. I guess some members of the congregation could have potentially been involved uh, in ICE or assisting ICE or something, whatever to that effect. I'm not certain of exactly the circumstances behind that. Don Lemon and these protesters did interrupt an active church service. Unfortunately for them, under federal law to protect all types of religious activities, it's plainly illegal, right? And this goes back to laws that were written during the time of the KKK when the KKK was fully active in the United States. So I think he did break the law. And I do think that every single protester that was there that day also broke the law. Because let's think about this from a different perspective. Had these protesters been inside a mosque or a synagogue or a Buddhist temple or Hindu temple or whatever the case, and done this exact same thing in any other major city protesting ICE, you'd likely have the same circumstance occur where they're arrested by law enforcement for breaking the law. That's all it is. I don't know at what point we started talking about people who enter a country illegally as saying that they're not illegal because it's stolen land. This is nonsense, people. We live in a world where there are laws. Every country has their own laws. If you break the country's laws, fortunately, you don't live in Russia because you're not going to go to the gulag, but you will suffer consequences either way. It's still the United States. I just don't understand any of these other notions that you can just plainly break the law and think that you're not going to have some sort of consequences occur, all because you feel like you're a victim. It's nonsense. We're adults. If you're going to do something, it's possible that you might lose your life. Full stop. I think that's where I got MR. I think that's where I'm
Okay.
at.
All right. CK, I see you making some facial expressions over there. Before I enter my 2 cents, go for it.
I mostly agree with you, but oh man, you can't say. I don't think it's not really Gestapo tactics. You know, they're doing the right thing, except for that little asterisk of killing, shooting citizens. Like, that's kind of a big asterisk, right? That's kind of Gestapo. Like all of the other things, okay, don't shoot civilians. Don't shoot citizens. I mean, that guy had a gun. There's no evidence, and obviously body cams everywhere. If they wanted evidence, they would have it. There's zero evidence that that dude drew his weapon. So that is a Second Amendment right through and through, right? I mean, the Republicans have their golden boy, whoever that idiot was in Wisconsin.
Logan Rittenhouse.
Yeah, Rittenhouse, who killed a dude at a protest, and that's their Second Amendment, baby. So you can't have it both ways, right? This guy had a gun. So what? Did he draw it on anyone? No, because there's enough cameras where if he did, they'd be all over Fox News. It didn't happen. Pretti, she drove away. Was she trying to hurt someone? Not really. She was going pretty slow. If he wanted to move out of the way, he would have. It's just obvious, right? It's obvious that these ICE people are undertrained everywhere. I think you guys, I think everywhere under the sun, it says, hey, join ICE, right? There's recruiting everywhere. They'll take anybody with a pulse.
And that's what happens when you're trying to set something up so quickly and move so fast, is that you're just throwing money at people to get people in. You're not getting people that actually want to do it for the right reasons, and then the training is not there. And so
but it's beyond that, right? Part of that is having. They set the training to 47 days because he's the 47th president. So, like, you obviously don't care.
Weeks as well. There's a lot of people.
What?
If there's a huge article that came out in the Wall Street Journal that said, if in your resume, because AI scans everything, scans your resume, and you have officer anywhere, doesn't matter what type of, you're a food officer or whatever, you get put in the 4-week training instead of the 47-day training.
Which and is both of those are negligent. So
agreed.
So, at worst, it's Gestapo, and at least it's you guys are just plain retarded. And this is an infringement on Second Amendment rights. It's an infringement on right to protest. And not only that, just in the court of public opinion, you're losing this 90-10 solution or 90-10 issue by shooting citizens. Everything else,
Yeah.
arrest Don Lemon, great. Arrest people who shouldn't be in this country, great. Stop shooting people. Don't shoot anybody. Okay, even if you had to say, okay, the Minneapolis police are my escort. I don't have a gun, and I'm just there to arrest, and I don't even have the ability to shoot. I
That'll
don't
never
care.
happen.
You have
That'll
to.
never happen.
I
Never
would
happen.
lean on the side of not shooting anybody.
You got to
Yeah.
remember, CK. The laws even of the states are if it's a law enforcement officer and they're pushed to the boundary of having used lethal force, the court unfortunately allows them to be further on the side of lethal force. They're not in the wrong. I get it. I mean, don't get me wrong. I
They
completely
are
agree.
in the
You should
wrong.
not
I don't
be shooting
care what the
civilians.
court said. They
You
are in
should
the wrong.
you should not be shooting civilians.
So
But
let me
the
hop
way
in
the
here for a
laws are
second.
written.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, yeah, and I'm with you. I'm with you, BG. We're having like a very civil, honest conversation. If the laws are written a certain type of way, they're probably going to take advantage of the way that the law is written in order to protect themselves. Like, I think anyone with a brain can understand. Oh yeah, okay. Does it make it right? Doesn't mean the law is right. So I think we're on the same page with Don Lemon. So let's just kind of like get that one out of the way. Don Lemon was fired by CNN. He is an agitator. He just goes on anywhere where he can get clicks. He's just kind of spiraling out of control. And then, yes, he went into a church, disrupted a service. I know he's pleading like journalist rights. I do not think when he's being prosecuted and arrested, we're going to see journalist rights infringed. This is clearly he did something illegal. That laws protect all religious buildings and services. And Don Lemon, just an idiot, and made a very uncalculated mistake, and he's going to pay the price for it.
Alex Pretti too, right? Provocateur. They have him on video kicking ICE vehicles. Like all of these guys are provocateurs, and all of these guys are funded by it's not grassroots. This is AstroTurf, where all these guys are funded to do what they're doing.
Sure, but here's the difference, right? So I agree, and that's my point, right? So when I look at ICE and immigration, I think up until recently of killing civilians, right? So giant like pause stop there. Donald Trump's best thing that he's done as president is like shut down the border. The drugs have stopped coming in. The illegal immigrants have stopped coming in. It's been great. And when we said on this podcast months ago, over the summer, we said this is going to be a huge win. And the only thing that's going to stop it is if you start killing civilians.
Yep.
And the moment that happens, everything changes. Our opinions change on it. The way this has to be viewed has to change because you cannot do it. And so, one, I should wear uniforms like the United States military does, like police officers do, like the FBI does. There's no, I'm in fucking jeans and we're just wearing like a freaking, like a vest like that.
I am okay with them
that.
covering their face though.
Yes, because people are so passionate. I understand where you're coming from, but there needs to be a uniform. There needs to be standard. The training needs to increase.
Agreed
so like fundamentally, it is not going to be executed well. Now, this is where I come in. Stop, hold, pause. No one dies. Can't do it unless someone is shooting at you. Unless someone is going X amount of miles per hour driving a car at you, you can't do it. And you are the professional. It doesn't matter if people are agitating you. It doesn't matter if they're screaming or kicking. You can arrest them for disrupting a search investigation, but you don't arrest them by killing them. Like
MR.
Yeah.
Think about the rules of engagement in the global war on terrorism.
Right?
How are we less how are we less risk averse in our own states than we were against like Iraqi and Afghani
Check this out.
civilians?
If you didn't know, so ROE stands for rules of engagement. When you would go out on a mission in Iraq or Afghanistan, the only way, unless you're specifically targeting a certain individual, the only way you could discharge your weapon and attack somebody is if they fired at you first.
And of course, like there's room for debate on if that was right. And I think that was probably way too strict. But in Minnesota, in Minneapolis, like let's at least start there.
Seriously. And that's the point, right? And I'm not like, okay, the other side of the aisle wants to blame Renée Good. Well, she drove her car and she struck an officer. Yeah, she is not setting herself up for success. I think we can all acknowledge if she wasn't there. And then the counter argument is, well, we have the right to press, we have to do things. Yes, as a citizen, if you want to live, try to avoid putting yourselves in these situations. Just if you want to live. I'm not saying you're like losing your amendment rights because you could be killed. I'm just saying if you want to live. But as an ICE officer, as a police officer, as we saw in 2020 when the whole blue thing was going on, is you are the professional. You should only fire if being fired at. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You chose that profession because you are trying to enforce the law. You're trying to be the best part of human society. You're trying to be the best American possible. You do not lower yourself, your standards, what you're capable of to the worst of Americans. I'm not saying Renée Good or Alex Pretti are the worst of Americans. I'm saying worsen, you are people trying to break the law, people trying to do wrong things. You hold the law. You must enforce the law. You must be the law. You do not get to cut the law because you have power. And I think that's where the issue is. And I think that's where ICE, immigration as a whole may just fall apart. And it seems that something that was so good for the first year of Trump's administration is now falling apart because he built a program too quickly that wasn't ready to sustain, that people didn't fall within, whether the law itself or public opinion, which, believe it or not, kind of still matters just a little. And I think you can see ICE just taking a giant step backward, especially in blue states. Yeah, sure, maybe they can still go to Texas where they're actually deporting 90, out of all people that have been deported by ICE, 90% is from Texas. So maybe they'll just go back to the border areas. But going into these American cities that, yes, are run terribly, yes, are just fucking crime infested, Minneapolis being one of the worst in America with the Somali fraud. But it won't matter because you kill people and all the good you're going to do no longer matters.
Yeah, and there's nuance, right? It's not Republicans bad and Trump administration bad and ICE bad and the Democrats are doing the right thing and they're fighting tyranny. No.
Oh, no.
MSNBC AI photoshopped the photo of Alex Pretti so he looked more personable, so he looked more like a good martyr and not like a freak. He's a freak, right? He is a bad person. He's a weirdo. Not like this bastion of like civilization and the model citizen. No, he's a weirdo. I don't care. Like, you can judge me for that. The guy's a freak and was doing this and probably hoping for something like this to happen. Definitely not hoping for his life to end, but like wanted to play this victim and do whatever this bullshit was. The Democratic Party writ large are funding these, right? It's not a coincidence that we found millions and millions, probably hundreds of millions of Somali fraud in Minneapolis, and then they start rioting against ICE to change the narrative. That's obviously happening. It's not grassroots. It's AstroTurf. It's the same people that fund all of these riots. It's the same people that make pallets of bricks show up at these riots, right? So these people are not good people either. That doesn't mean you shoot citizens that aren't shooting you.
Yeah. To your point, because I think it felt like we were just shitting on the right the entire time. Like, at least half of our audience is on the right. The Democrats are no better. The Democrats are scumbags. If you look at just what happened in Minneapolis alone, what Tim Walz has literally gone up there and said, fight back, don't let them win. They've had many Democrat politicians saying fight back against ICE. Okay, when you say that as a political leader, you're increasing the opportunity, you're increasing the chance of violence.
And all of them. You have that shithead mayor of Minneapolis. I don't even know his name. The white guy who ate the Somali food. He's like, and he straight up grimaced on camera. He's like, oh, this is so good.
Yeah.
Like, so, they're all bullshit, but that doesn't mean you kill civilians.
Exactly. And I think for the intelligent listeners is you can have that honest conversation with yourself is, yes, the Democrats are scumbags. They're making the situation worse. They are sellouts. They are fucked. Maybe if they had the opportunity to go to Epstein's Island, they would have. But they didn't, apparently, because they're not in the files. And they have sold out their soul for power, and they're making the situation worse. Because if they agreed, and they allowed, and again, ICE being better trained, to just go in and just take all the illegal people, I'm going to probably be dead. There'll probably be no protest. Because, hey, crazy concept, Barack Obama, when he was a president, deported more of these people from Minnesota and from other states in America, and there were no protests because he was a Democrat, and these Democratic states weren't going to fight the president who was a Democrat. It's fucking bullshit. Like, don't fall for the propaganda.
And that to say, you're not saying that the GOP is fantastic either. That's exactly correct. The point. That's a uniparty problem, and we're
if anything, we're hating on the system.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same problem on both sides, right? And we're finding more and more as we dig into these different riots or January 6th, whatever you want to talk about, right? You find these companies and NGOs and other systems that are funding this crap. Like Indivisible Project was responsible for the start of the riot process, and they'd been funded by the Soros Foundation since 2018. So don't tell me that it's not coming from Democrats and Republicans. It is. They're funding it so that they can create a huge hassle somewhere in the country. And I guarantee you, this is where you're going to see next. You're going to start seeing problems in other major cities to divert the problem away from Minneapolis, because now they made a deal with the governor, with Tim Walz, right, so that they can pull out of Minnesota and divert the attention elsewhere.
Can I put on my tin cap real quick? My little conspiracy theory. As we see civil unrest, as we see these protests and riots, and not just in Minnesota, but like throughout the country, Larry Ellison has been very prominent about using AI to use as surveillance, like they do in China. Is
Larry
this
Ellison,
not?
you say?
Yeah. Is this
Owner of
not?
TikTok.
Yes, exactly. Is this not just more justification to turn the country more into the Chinese system, where you have cameras everywhere and you're always watching people, and you have the Big Brother from 1984? Sounds like me. People are going to start losing their rights more quickly, and we're going to become a surveillance country. That was very tin cap. I'll take my tin cap off unless someone wants to put it back on to go down that. If not, we just move on.
You know, searches for Epstein were blocked on TikTok this weekend.
Did you know if you used ChatGPT and did a little deep diving on a lot of things didn't pop up about it? Weird, right? Weird. Yeah. All right. Anything else before we move on to the next topic? All right. Okay. The last topic in any other normal time period in American history, this would have been the number one thing on the news, but it seems like it's being covered up or not even talked about at all. So you may not even know about this. China is in the midst of a major military leadership shakeup as Xi Jinping, who is the leader of China, purges his top generals.
Not on the Epstein list.
Yeah, he was not. Where was it? Purges his top generals from the People Liberation Army, the PLA, under the banner of anti-corruption and discipline enforcement. Longtime military leaders like General Zhang Zhu and General Li Zhenliu, previously among the most powerful officers and loyal allies, have been removed from their posts and placed under investigation for serious violations of disciplinary and law. A move that has dramatically depleted the top ranks of Central Military Commission, the Chinese version of their military. Analysts view the shakeup not only as a crackdown on corruption, but also as these efforts to consolidate control over the military by sidelining figures with independent influence or differing strategic views. The purge has raised questions about military cohesion, command stability, and China's strategic posture, especially regarding Taiwan and internal political dynamics. So I think this is a massive top story because, one, China is now weaker than it has ever been, at least from a military standpoint. There's a lot of reports saying that most military commands don't have leaders, and they're trying to figure out who to replace. They're saying that this is going to push back the Taiwanese invasion that was scheduled for 2027, may push it back a year or two. There are reports that the United States is behind this, even though you're not really seeing that in a lot of things where ChatGPT won't confirm it or even acknowledge it in one way whatsoever. But you do some research of your own to form your own thesis viewpoint on it. But the bottom line is China ousted its own top generals. CK, what does that mean for China and what does that mean for us?
MR, let me just start by saying your pronunciation of the Chinese generals' names, top notch. Never have I heard better pronunciation since my father ordering General Tso's chicken at Band Express. Top tier. I gotta give you props for that. I mean, what did this do? It's impossible to know the long-term ramifications. Were we involved? Almost definitely. How much we're involved, it's hard to tell. And how much actually happened. I mean, China is so close hauled. They keep their cards so... I mean, there's like stories of like a dam breaking and killing 200,000 people. And we in the Western world don't find out about it until like 20 years later. Like 200,000 people died from a natural disaster. We don't know about it. There's conspiracies that China is grossly overrepresenting their population, and
I've seen those. Yeah,
there's 1.4 billion people, but they say, wait, there was 500 million when they enacted one China policy. How did it increase? It's only decreased. They're probably at like 400 million now. They're struggling, and they're just trying to keep it up to keep us here. So I don't know, because they're really good at keeping their problems close hold. So is this a big problem? Is this a small problem? Jack Ma,
yep,
the owner of Alibaba, he disappeared. Like for 2 years, apparently, like the richest man almost in the world almost. Like apparently they sent him to like a re-education camp and he came back and was like, I love China, Xi Jinping's the best. Like I mean, it's hard to tell what this will do. You think it's going to delay. I mean, many people think it's going to delay. But I would also argue that the current administration's actions are expediting things and are kind of giving China the green light. Oh, you're taking Venezuela? Oh, you're going to take Greenland? Okay, I'm going to take Taiwan. How am I any different than you?
Yeah, I think that comparison is incredibly fair, and I know we talked that last episode because it just makes sense. To your point, yes, no one really knows what's going on in China, and less, including the Chinese people, don't really know what's going on either. That's what happens when you have a communist country, a totalitarian leadership, is that all the information is closed. So that's a true secret police. That's a true Gestapo. That is not, America's version of ICE, which we all think is bad in that regard. But that is the highest level of people speak out and they just disappear. This is like KGB as well. So
to all my Avatar: The Last Airbender lovers, there is no war in Ba Sing Se.
Yeah, that's a great callback. But if it is true that other countries were involved in hurting the Chinese military, which is why Xing, removed them from their positions. There's reports about setting back their nuclear program or at least gaining their nuclear capabilities and secrets. I would imagine that if the influence ran so deep that they also influenced an incompetent military, whether they didn't do unified land operations, whether they didn't sync their Air Force, Navy, and Army up, and they delayed that whole thing. So Xi's getting these reports that his military is so good, that they're on schedule, that they're doing these drills, they're doing everything to make them successful, when in reality, those reports were fake or falsified, and the military is much weaker and more incompetent than he thought. I think that's where I'm coming from, where I think there will be a delay.
That's another possibility. I'm saying, maybe nothing will happen because they keep everything close hold. I mean, how many wars has China been in?
That's the other thing, they haven't. So they don't have an experienced military.
There's this like boogeyman that we're thinking, China's got it all and they're ready, and when they hit, we're done. They might just be not. I mean, Russia attacked Ukraine. Everyone's like, 10 days, give it 2 weeks, and they'll be in Kiev.
That's the exact point. The Russian military was beyond the definition of incompetent, and they just got destroyed when they invaded Ukraine.
So could go either way. Like it could just be like, hey, China's this boogeyman, and now we're seeing the cracks in the dam. But it also just could be a nothing burger, and like, we're like, haha, China lost all their generals. They don't care. Next man up.
Yeah, and only time will tell, right? That's with all these things. Like I talked at the beginning of the podcast about Venezuela. It's been 3 weeks now, and still Venezuela is rolling along, and there's no major reports about the country falling apart. There's nothing like that about the economy, and there's all these things happening in the background. But surface level, everything looks normal and good after removing a dictator. But here's the thing, you may not know for months or years. In China's case, they don't attack next year, right? Is there going to be another report out? Are they going to be like, it's the polar ice caps are melting. If we don't do something now, in 1977, everything's going to be melted. We're all going to die. 1985, everyone's going to be dead. By 2000, you better be ready to live underwater. Keep dangling the carrot in front of the horse.
It's good to have a boogeyman. But I will... Even so, I will still fear China until General Something Wang takes charge of the land forces.
BT, you got any thoughts on this before we do our closing comments?
I'll just say this. Yeah, it's the largest crackdown of corruption and disloyalty in the Chinese Communist Party since the Mao Zedong era, since after the Chinese Civil War.
Can I say one thing, not to interrupt you?
Yeah.
Let's give China some credit where credit's due. At least they do something about their corruption, right? Right? There's got to be something to be said about that. At least they're doing
ironically enough, if you betray the party to a high enough level, they don't decapitate you or put you to death. They expel you from the country.
It is a it's an advantage. I mean, it's a disadvantage and advantage, but if you have Milley, calling China and telling him, "Don't worry, we're not going to do anything," right? If that was China and Milley was their general, he's done. It's over.
Yeah.
And Milley in the United States, because Biden's president, you know, all good, keep going. I mean, I'm saying that like, well, Biden, messed up and should have fired Milley for that bullshit. No, because Trump's same way with Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth could say whatever he wants, and he's fine. He's still in charge.
Yeah. All right, BG, we'll hand it back over to you. I did not mean to interrupt you. That just like light bulb went off in my head. I was like, oh, must be nice to hold people accountable for their actions.
No, yeah, that's why I made the point about expelling them, because we can't trust ICE to do that apparently in our own country, and some people now have moved to the point where we think that an entire agency of the federal government should be defunded. And I'm all for defunding the entire federal government, so I partially believe in that, but good luck.
Oh
Starting
man,
with the Fed, BG.
we should save that
No.
debate. we should save a time for that debate and just do an episode just for that. All right. Any comments before I give you guys your final comments? All right. BG, I'll let you go first. What are your closing comments?
Closing comments. I saw a report from either Al Jazeera or Sky Arabia within the last couple of hours that the United States does not intend to strike Iran.
Oh, dude, I thought you were going to go with hiring the new Fed chair.
Oh, I am. I just read that a little bit ago, and I said, "Oh, okay, that's something I have to mention," because by the time we put this out to the public, it's probably time for something to actually occur in Iran. Wink, 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 wink.
Yep.
Anyway, moving to the most important organization in the United States, the Federal Reserve. DJT announced this week that he was nominating Kevin Warsh, who's previously served as a Federal Reserve Board of Governor back in the Bush and Obama administrations. That's George W.
And in the Epstein files.
Not the Epstein file. Yeah, but he has mentioned the Epstein files. I don't know to what extent. I haven't looked at the emails or any of the documents to clarify there. But I wouldn't be surprised if he's somehow connected to that part of power in the world, given that he's married to the Lauder family, Jane Lauder. So Estee Lauder, the company, as you can imagine, is filthy loaded. Rich. Anyway, so background on him, reasons why BG thinks he'd probably actually be a good fit. So he's an attorney. He did his undergrad at Stanford, BA in economics, and then he went to Harvard for his JD. So he's definitely a smart guy. I worked on Wall Street back in 1995 to 2002 at Morgan Stanley in their M&A department as a JD. So that's impressive because normally you're really only looking at bankers in that realm. So seeing a JD, you're obviously going to have some lawyers for due diligence. So that's exciting to see him do that. But he's also spent some time in a cabinet position doing special advisory stuff for the George W. Bush administration, other economics work. He was initially I think one of the youngest board governors to be at the Fed. And that was actually a large part of criticism for him being appointed after his nomination to the Federal Reserve System at the initial outset, because he was going to be one of the youngest. However, Ben Bernanke, the former Fed chair, has said that he was very smart, very attentive, willing to do whatever was needed for the job. I think he would probably be a great person for this position in the future. Now, having said that, I am concerned that he has close ties to the DJT administration, and so my concern is that he would make a decision on interest rates or potential money supply implications that aren't in the best interest of the United States as a whole, and instead does something that's connected to a party. And I don't like that at all, because I like that the Fed is an independent body. It needs to remain that way, because ultimately they make decisions based on the data, not based on what politicians want to see on either side of the aisle. So
if you end it, it's independent of everything.
Yeah, I like I've said before, CK, I just don't see that ever being a good idea again, because then we would have to completely change how the entire economic structure is set up. And unless you like bank runs and panics, last year, just within the last year, we had bank runs and panics still occurring in the United States all these years later, even with companies that are fully fine, right? I mean, 2008 Bear Stearns, you look at their balance sheet, you look at everything they had in terms of cash and capital, they were absolutely fine and still went under, all because of panic. So yeah, not a fan of removing the Fed.
No, I appreciate that breakdown, BG. We should do an episode on the economy again soon, and with these changes that are happening and what we predict is going to happen to the market and the economy as a whole, because those are some things that does directly impact all of us. All right, CK, go with your closing comments.
I think I was supposed to talk about this second run of government shutdown, MR, as instructed by you, my handler. But I'm gonna pivot.
You sure it wasn't the Israelis?
Yeah, MR stands for. No, I'm not gonna make a. Whatever I say is not gonna work. Anyways, I think Danny DeVito should be the new press secretary. Yeah, first act, gotta definitely write a song about how we do not diddle kids. Do not
Always
diddle
Sunny in
kids.
Philadelphia reference.
It's not good diddling kids.
Isn't it weird?
You would
how
save the
Hollywood,
Trump
like,
administration.
Isn't it wild though how like Hollywood like kind of predicts everything? If you talk about The Simpsons, or I guess Always Sunny in Philadelphia, it's like they already know what's going on.
Yep, it's weird.
It's weird how that works. Oh Lord, help us all. Anything else?
Nothing for me.
All right, just don't diddle kids. All right, I'll hit the final closing comments. The Virginia Military Institute is currently under siege by Democratic lawmakers attacking the institute, trying to strip it of its sovereignty. I know we talk about a lot of things on the podcast, a lot of things at the national level or the foreign affairs level, a lot of things that we can control, but we can control this. If you are in the state of Virginia, fight back peacefully, of course. Go to Richmond, Virginia, and fight back against what they're doing to the Virginia Military Institute. It is horrifically undemocratic. It is. I wish it were illegal, but essentially what's happening is that the state representatives in Virginia are trying to strip away its board of trustees and basically merge it with Virginia State University, which would then render VMI powerless, and you could see the institute kind of dissolving into nothing. So they're trying to take away one of the senior military colleges in America that collectively produces more officers than any other ROTC program in the country. And then you can look at this three different ways. One, if this can happen to VMI, a proud traditional school that has helped America in more ways than anyone can count, including its most famous graduate being George Catlin Marshall, the savior of the world after World War II, then it can happen to any of your colleges and universities, which just makes us no better than any communist dictatorship that exists in this country. You can look at it from another angle. If you eliminate the Virginia Military Institute, you are losing hundreds of high-quality officers every single year, therefore weakening the United States military and giving our adversaries more power, which maybe we should look into these lawmakers and if they're getting any special money packed from any other countries and why they're trying to make this decision. What I'm saying is, if this can happen here to the Virginia Military Institute, it can happen anywhere. And so please write to your legislators, write to your congressmen, your senators at the state level, and help push back to repeal these acts that are trying to strip VMI away from its sovereignty. All right, we're definitely going to talk more on that topic. I'm very passionate about it, as I just think it can have horrible consequences throughout our country, just like everything else we talked about today. But Turnips, thank you so much for listening. If you're still listening, I think this was definitely one of our better episodes. So if you please hit the like, share, subscribe button. Maybe we can get more than 100 listeners again. That would be really cool. If not, we appreciate the 6 that listen consistently. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.